Alright, so I am recording.
So is this the part where we're starting where we're also cutting the shit and then we get to what we're talking about?
Yes. So let's organically talk about random things. And go. Be organic.
So we just played, we're just getting done playing pick up, or I guess what?
One shot.
A one shot of a TTRPG. And that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was cool. I liked how you just kind of decided whether or not your character was good at stuff as you
Yeah.
because it really made it feel much more like a role playing game. Like the changing of the role was part of what you were playing with.
Yeah.
And it was fun to kind of do that in real time and be like, I think that my guy is bad at listening, but he's good at seeing stuff, terrible at listening.
I had to catch myself a few times because I was like, okay, because we got assigned random characters for the one shot, and like, okay, what's a good thing you're good at and a thing you're bad at, and do you believe in magic? Mine was like, okay, I'm good at investigation and research because I'm a brainy person, but I'm a coward. And like, okay, we're doing an investigation check. Well, I mean, is that research? Is that investigation? It's under int on the character sheet, so maybe. And there were parts where I'd have to like try and keep myself honest, which some people are better at that than I am. Let's just say that. These guys have been playing with it for nearly 20 years now, and yeah, there's some issues. There's been some incidents.
You have to always keep an eye on him.
I get bored real easy, and then I start making decisions that in the moment I think are amusing, and other people might disagree.
They're amusing, yes, but
yeah, but no, that was a fun campaign, or a fun little one shot, and yeah, it was a lot more organic. I will say we rolled 1d6 to see if you succeeded, and on a 5 or 6 you passed. I kind of would like to have like a 2 or 3 be or a 3 or 4 be a moderate success.
Yeah, I agree.
So
there were a
it
lot
kind
of
of works
fours
and
and
kind of
stuff.
doesn't. Yeah, because it just.
Well, I feel like he got frustrated with us a little bit because we we weren't doing certain parts of the story, but we just couldn't because we couldn't get the roles to like talk to people and stuff.
Yeah.
So we just had to make up shit and go with it, which ended up being hilarious.
I lost track of how many times I rolled a 1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many.
Yeah.
But for an impromptu one shot, it worked pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, it was still pretty fun.
And I still think we had the best outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't actually succeed, but the people who were all dicks got killed, and the ones we liked lived. So
I mean, we saved the innocent ones.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah,
Mostly.
ish. I mean, technically, they are no more or less guilty than their parents because they're all part of the same family, and like
we did
you can't really
save
inherit the
people
guilt of
who
your.
were too young to be dicks.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, too young to be judged for being
Yeah,
dicks.
exactly.
I've met some kids. Yeah, being children are terrible. They're little monsters. All the children survived, so we've achieved victory.
We preserved the future generations.
Yeah, I am pro protecting kids. I just don't like them.
And that was an interesting choice that it came down to at the end there, where we were like, we could either save them or whatnot in the last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We just happened to come out of the catacombs and the bad people were dead.
Yep.
Oh no.
We didn't stop the witch that y'all falsely accused.
Yeah. I do like that Gabe's. We opened the campaign of the session of this is this town that 200 years ago they burned a woman at the stake for being a witch, and she swore vengeance in 200 years against all the scions of the leading families. And Gabe's opening maneuver, first day into the town as monster hunters, was like, what if we just let the witch do her thing? Like, these guys seem like assholes. I think they deserve it. And the best part, I kept saying no because I felt bad for our DM of we can't just say fuck it, let the bad guy win in the first 5 minutes. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and if I was actually in this situation, I would have been like, yeah, you dicks deserve it.
Yeah.
But that was a bit much. But that did end up being basically the plan. Like, hey, we got their wives and families out, and then the ones who had it coming, we let nature take its course.
Yep.
Yep.
Heroes, ladies and gentlemen.
Listen, there's two ways. There's 2 ways to resolve a curse.
Yeah.
1, unwrite it. 2, meet the criteria.
We did try to get them to all say that they were sorry, and they didn't want to.
That's also true.
Yeah,
We
the
did
ones
try to
who
get them
didn't
to
say
do
they're
that.
sorry are the ones who died.
Yeah.
Except for the one who thought it was hilarious that she wasn't actually related to anybody and all these dicks were dying, which is also a version of I'm sorry, to my mind. Like, I'm not exactly sorry, but fuck them. They deserve it, so yeah.
Yeah.
But on the subject of curses, Warhammer. So we've been talking about, or we've been playing a little bit of Warhammer Space Marine 2, which is a lot of fun.
So much fun.
We haven't, I don't know that we've put any videos up on the YouTubes yet, but we will. They'll be coming, more of us yammering, but this time as we kill things. But we thought, since it's popular and since it's Halloween, Warhammer's creepy enough to count for Halloween. There's demons and things.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some Space Marines and why they're cool, and some maybe lesser known chapters who eat people.
Yeah, that's one of the Space Marine traits of the gene seed that doesn't get publicized as often, is that Space Marines can eat, and this is just generally Space Marines, it's not limited to a specific chapter, but Space Marines can eat neural tissue of a dead thing and learn things from said dead neural tissue. And it is not specified what the origin species of that needs to be. So, yeah. It's just a part of being a Space Marine. Just in case Space Marines weren't creepy enough for you.
I will say for the record that I acknowledge that. I was talking about ones who eat people even more than that.
That is also true.
And what chaos god is that?
No, these are the Imperials.
These are loyalists.
Oh.
So what Ryan's referring to, I think what Ryan's referring to, because there might be a couple of these, but the Flesh Terrors are the famous ones for this.
I thought
They
those
are
were
some of the
Necron.
ones I'm referring to.
I thought those were the Necron that were going crazy and put flesh back on them metal skeletons.
No, that's oh my god, what's the name?
The
Flayed ones.
Flayed ones.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's flayed ones. They just cut the skin up and put it on them. Flesh Terrors are a Space Marine chapter. They're actually a Blood Angels descendant chapter, so they're sons of Sanguinius, which is important because
they're vampires.
They are vampires, and they're more straight up vampires than the rest of the Blood Angels in their other.
And not your fancy we're all European and elegant vampires. No, these are just we're gonna rip you apart and drink your blood because delicious blood for the Emperor, maybe.
Yeah,
why not?
Blood for the Emperor.
Skulls for the Golden Throne. You watch yourself.
That's close. That's close. That is actually voice lined in several Warhammer games now. Darktide specifically put that one in there a few times.
You watch yourself?
One of the zealots goes, "Blood for the Emperor, skulls for the Golden Throne," and actually says it. It's intense. Yeah, so there's this thing called the Red Thirst that some of the Blood Angels experienced throughout their history, even back in the pre-Horus Heresy days, where periodically one would go insane and just start killing people around him. The big version of this that ended up happening was at the moment of, spoiler alert if you're reading through the Horus Heresy, but also kind of not, because it's just been around for a long time.
It's basic lore.
And this is basic
kind
lore.
of in the core thing.
So Sanguinius dies, and it's awesome if you have the chance. If you have the chance to read it, you should. The whole final series of the Horus Heresy, the Siege of Terra, was awesome. But basically, when he dies, there's this kind of psychic shockwave that goes out and hits all of the Blood Angels. And in that moment, they see and live through the final moments of Sanguinius's life in his duel against Horus. So, but since they're living it through the perspective of being there, seeing the death of Sanguinius, they start to see other people around them looking like Horus, and then they attack them. And while they're doing this, they're basically roided. Like, they have increased strength, increased speed, ferocity, etc., and they think they're fighting Horus himself, so they're very spirited, let's say, about it. And so boots on the ground, though, is that a whole bunch of White Scars and Hot Solaria and all of these like loyalist imperial forces are like defending the Terra, right? Defending the Golden Throne. At the end of the heresy, things have gone very poorly for the defenders, and then all of a sudden, all the Blood Angels start just murking anything near them, including friendly troopers, like whole units of friendly, just base Imperial Guard, although they're Imperial Army at the time, just get murked by the Blood Angels, and the Blood Angels are super sad about it afterwards, and it's this like shame thing in the chapter. Well, some of them were like, but we're so strong when we're like that, you guys. Like, we're just super, super powerful when we're in that state. Why don't we, like, use that more? Let's lean into it. And the Blood Angels for a long time were like, no. And then they pooped out a little successor chapter, and it was the Flesh Terrors. And all of a sudden, most of the Blood Angels and the actual Blood Angels were like, yeah, we don't like that. And the dissenting voices were kind of gone. And then you look at those, the rosters, and you kind of see where that all went. So the Flesh Terrors are Blood Angels who lean into the Red Thirst and use it actively as a combat tool.
I would point out two things. One, the Red Thirst, when they, without the whole thinking they're Sanguinius thing, they just go into a murder frenzy and specifically drink blood.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's the Red Thirst. They are thirsty for blood.
For blood.
Of their enemies, but everybody counts as an enemy.
Yeah.
And two, the Flesh Terrors specifically, there's at least one recorded instance of them like landing on a planet, seeing, oh shit, it's Horus, and then waking up a couple hours later of like, weren't there a bunch of Sisters of Battle here? Oops. Let's maybe never mention this again. And we're leaving, and we're gone, and goodbye.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so Flesh Terrors, that's where you'll see some of the memes where it's a guardsman and it says, he's like, has a scared face and it's like, the Tyranids are everywhere, and then it's a happy face. The Astartes are dropping, and then it's like, they get out. They have red armor with chainsaw blades on their pauldrons, and it's a scared face again.
Yeah. Oh, also, I was doing a little bit of research. Apparently, is it Gabe or Tycho is their leader? I think it's Gabe.
Yeah.
Because somebody was a Penny Arcade fan back in the day when they were writing this chapter. He gets a bunch of Primaris Marines, and he doesn't like them because they're not mad enough. Like, what the shit is this? None of them have scars. None of them have just started murdering things and had to be dragged off it by their battle brothers. These guys are a bunch of pussies. How dare you not try to murder everything that breathes in a 50-foot radius? Reason and rationality is not the way of the Imperium, goddammit.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So, and on the other hand, they're tremendously good in melee combat. They're extraordinarily good at what they do.
Because I want to eat you.
Yeah, and despite there being a few inquisitorial, investigations begun, like they've stood up to the tests of loyalty each time and are technically considered, Astartes in good standing. But yeah.
So there's vampires at the top chain of the seed. There are werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
And other zombies. Are they just like flesh-eating things?
Yeah, they're just they're more. It's more vampires. They're more vampiric, but it's more like the feral vampire and less the sophisticated vampire. Which is what Ryan was trying to say earlier.
Also, what kind of death nade Is it like you died and now all of your children have to like relive your death from your point of view?
If they get stressed out enough.
That's messed up.
Yeah, it's super fucked up. I think it's partially just because Sanguinius was so awesome when he was alive that his psychic link to his dudes was better than most of the Primarchs. And his you could say, I mean, I don't know, there's a case to be made for some of the other legions, but the Blood Angels were one of the most attuned to their Primarch, especially of the Loyalist chapters.
I mean, that sounds like some psychic stuff. Were the Blood Angels known for psychic abilities, or they were just that connected?
They have some very powerful psychers, yes. They're not known for it. They're mostly known for, like, their melee, their assault tactics and use of close quarters combat. But they're similar to the Ultramarines in that they are more of a generalized chapter. Like, Blood Angels could do more or less anything. They just particularly like close quarters combat.
Yeah, and painting little wings on their jump packs.
Yep. Which, by the way, in Space Marine 2, you can get little wings for your jump pack.
Nice.
It's awesome.
So yeah, that was one of the chapters that I thought was interesting and a lesser known one. I have a couple more that also eat people.
Well, I think
'Cause
Flesh
that's
Terrors are also one of the color configurations you can get in Space Marine 2.
Ah.
That's one of the...
I would not be surprised. They're well known for a secondary or tertiary chapter.
Yeah. What's cool,
Lean
I saw somebody who had put together a pretty close version of the Angry Marines
Nice.
build. He didn't have the angry smiley faces, but maybe they'll add that in the DLC later.
Nice.
Anyway, so what are some of the other chapters you were thinking of?
Well, I had run across, and I remember actually reading about them, and I think pretty much one of the few, if not only, places they show up. One of I believe the second Ultramarines novel, there is a chapter called The Malefactors that literally eat people and cover themselves in the bones of their enemies. Like, you don't get to be a member of the chapter until you have killed... No, I'm sorry, you have to kill 100 enemy warriors and take their heads before you get allowed into the trials. And you're not an enemy you're not a full chapter member until you kill an enemy of a sufficient might and cleanse the flesh from their skull and start wearing it as a helmet. And their culture is literally cannibalistic.
So does that mean
And they never see the sun.
you can only befriend people with heads bigger than you?
I think... Yeah, I had that question. Not befriend, they would be your enemies, but you can only, like, you have to only hunt enemies with a bigger head. That's the question I had when I first read it, and the impression I got was like, okay, well, you can, take a human skull and, like, put it on hinges, and, you can stretch it a little bit, but it's got to be a good sized skull, And this is a Space Marine, so, killing a random human, even if it's an impressive human, not going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
An Orc, a Space Marine, those might count.
Demon.
Yeah.
Demon would be pretty cool.
Eldar, maybe, but again, you might have to, like, come up with a battle recording of, like, no, it was totally legit. This one was actually impressive.
This one had spikes on its armor, I promise.
Yeah. But yes, the best part is they're an incredibly loyal and ultimately, like, unquestionable Ultramarine successor. They are the Papa Smurf boys, and again, like, a beyond reproach, despite the fact that they're a bunch of death metal, like, clearly Nurgle types.
Murder cultists.
Yeah.
Ow.
So yeah, that's the thing that I like with 40K, to throw in the academic shit, because that's my job here. I like this interplay between high and low that seems to be in pretty much everything 40K does. Like the Flesh Terrors or the Blood Angels. They're graceful and they're ornate and they're beautiful, and sometimes they devolve into a murderous rage where they think it's the death of their chapter master and they have to kill literally everyone. You get these uber death metal cultists, like actually literally eats people as part of their culture because their culture just was too strong to be overcome by the blueberries. And they're perfectly loyal and like beyond reproach. They always show up when help is asked for. They never turn down a call for aid. They shit on the codex, basically. Like, they totally ignore it and consider it a bunch of suggestions, but they're utterly loyal and utterly, devoted, so there's nothing actually wrong with them aside from everything about them.
Who are the blueberries? Sorry.
The Ultra Smurfs, the Ultramarines. Sorry, I keep going into fan references.
No, you're good. I was just... So they ran... I thought you said they were on the side of the Imperium.
They are.
They're running from the...
No, they... So they descended from the blueberries, and they're like... The Ultramarines tried to come in with their tactics and their Macragge honor and all this shit to a world that was shrouded in night and full of murderous cannibals, and the murder cannibal culture just kind of crept over as the Ultramarine culture as new recruits got indoctrinated. So within 1,000 years, there was no more. They barely listen to the Codex now. It's a book with some helpful rules in it, but it's just that they don't really care that much. And they eat people and make armor out of the bones of their enemies, and all of their buildings are giant ossuaries, like just built of bone. But again, totally loyal, totally 100% devoted to Ultramar and its cause. They're just some creepy death metal fuckers. It's kind of like the orcs. They're brutal and bestial, and they're also winning and having fun and actually like surprisingly enlightened. Mm-hmm. There was a chapter in one of the orc books, the Big Daka, I think, that one of the orcs was like, yeah, they hate. It's weird that the Humies and the Eldar hate things. I don't hate things. Don't really hate anything. I'm sure there's things that annoy me and that I'd rather not deal with, but usually you can fight those things. So what's to hate? They're not all bad. And like that's enlightened in the most brutal, bestial way possible. So yeah, I like that 40K. It does a lot of those playing with extremes and intermingling. It's also all extremes. There is no middle ground whatsoever.
Yeah, which is hilarious, and it's part of the fun of having so many authors working on their core canon. Like they've created a circumstance where it's hard to have author bias. Not that they don't, but that it's hard to. Just because some other author isn't going to care about your character as much, and they're going to do stuff to them. Because, like, you can tell when you're writing, or when you're reading some of the books of, like, who really likes Horus, who really likes Sanguinius, because they always come out much cooler sounding in those books than sometimes in the other ones, where you can tell it's like, this guy thinks that Jagatai is awesome and Mortarion's a bitch.
Just the bias built right in.
Yeah, into the writing, which is phenomenal.
So, are there any more flesh-eating cults in the Space Marines? Or is 2 enough?
There's definitely more.
Yeah, there's a lot of them actually.
It's not uncommon. Those are the 2 bigger ones. Yeah, I don't know that the Astrocarcharodons. I don't know that they. I'm pretty sure they eat people, but I don't know if there's any particular reason for it, or they just kind of find them tasty and like the intimidation factor.
Yeah, we just don't.
They're the Star Sharks.
Yeah. Very cool. Also, one of the color schemes you can get in the game.
Yeah.
I was running my tactical as an Archaeodon for a while, which was a lot of fun.
Star Sharks?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know, like the Space Wolves?
Yeah.
It's like
sharks.
that, but sharks.
And there is, I believe, there's at least a theory that they're a Space Wolf successor. I don't know that they officially... I don't know that we know what chapter they're descended from, but...
Yeah, I think the Space Marines the Space Wolves only had one official successor chapter, and and it went bad, and they don't talk about that anymore. But they do have, they might have a Primaris chapter or Primaris successors now. But like for a long time, the Space Wolves were unique in that they didn't have any successors. The Salamanders have a few, but no second founding because they were nearly wiped out. But
Yeah.
after time, they got some more up and, were able. So I don't have any more cannibalistic flesh eaters on my list, but I do have one other one that was one of my favorites. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot another flesh eater, the Soul Drinkers.
Oh yeah, the Soul Drinkers.
Which, if you're listening on YouTube, I actually have the full audiobook up for Soul Drinkers #1. Give it a listen. If you're not on YouTube, and if you're anybody who knows anything about copyright infringement, don't listen and ignore what I just said. It is a non-profit audiobook. I'm not making any money. I'm just doing it because it was fun, and nobody's done that story so far as I know. So, if Games Workshop asks me to take it down, I will. But I think it's fun. Free advertisement. Don't know.
I think it was a good read.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
But weren't
they
Chaos?
Well, they started as loyal, and the reason they're called the Soul Drinkers is that when they eat somebody's flesh, not even just neural matter, but even flesh, they not only get their memories, they get their emotions. So it feels like they're drinking the soul of that person.
Why would you want your emotions?
It's not a thing they planned for. It's a thing. It's a mutation of their omniphagia. But yeah, so that's why they become soul drinkers. And then one of them got spider legs, as you do.
No. That's what Chaos do.
Yeah, that was a fun moment in the chapter. I will admit, I won't say what I was on, but the first time I read that, I was in an altered mental state. Yeah. Anyway, I was reading that, and I'm like, okay, suddenly, wait, the Space Marine now has spider legs, and I read it like twice, and no, he still has spider legs. Okay, I'm too fucked up for this. I must be seeing things. That can't possibly be what happened. I'll reread this in the morning when I'm sober. Nope, sure enough. Spider legs.
Spider legs, indeed.
And it was the newer of the chapter that were like, that's heresy. All the like veterans and stuff like, yeah, no, there was a white light, whatever, it was cool.
Yeah, yep, totally.
No, that was God sorcery.
Yeah.
You sure it looked pretty even? No, it's fine. It's fine.
Totally our God, the Emperor, also known as the Architect of Fate. It's like, guys, that's a recognized name, and it's not from Big Daddy E.
It's not from Big E.
We know who the Architect of Fate is. He's got bird wings.
Yep.
And they still somehow stay loyal.
Yep. Well, they not loyal, but they were renegades.
Yeah.
Which is fuck the Imperium, but we love the Emperor and mostly humanity. Just we don't like the guys in charge.
Yeah, and to be fair, they did get pretty fucked over.
They did. The Mechanicus just yoinked shit away from them because they could.
Yeah.
The Mechanicus is dicks.
They're relics. Like,
Yeah.
Holy artifacts. They're like, no, I'm gonna go play with that over there. No.
And then they ended up giving it to a cult within their own Mechanicus. Like, you stole a relic and pissed off a bunch of Space Marines to do it, and you can't even keep track of it, you dipshits.
Yeah. This is a good book.
Yeah. And there's 5 more. So there's 2 Omnibuy. And it gets even weirder.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So then, I hate to ask, so there's some pretty scary chapters just in the Imperium, but like, what are the scariest then in Chaos? Just all of them?
Depends on what kind of horror you're into.
Oh, that's not a question that I like. That makes me feel uncomfortable.
That's Chaos for you.
It's which flavor of this do you think is worse? Because there's going to be people in different camps about that, right? So like, the Night Lords, for instance, their strategies before they went over to Chaos. Let's say there's 5 systems or 5 planets in a system that are populated. The Night Lords would show up to one, block out its communication from everyone else, so it would just go dark. And then they would spend a few weeks to a few months torture murdering the populace to death and recording it in various forms, video, audio, whatever. Then they would hack the systems of whatever communication the target system used, and they would play the recordings of them torturing the populace of this entire planet to the populace of the other planets on loop for several weeks, months. Then,
And again, this is the Imperium. These are the good guys.
this is before they fell to chaos. This is while they were loyalist troops.
Yeah.
They
Good guys is stretching it quite
Yeah.
a bit, but loyalist.
then they would open channels for the populace to talk to them. And the thing is, 8 out of 10 times, the populace of the rest of the other 3 planets in the system just surrendered to the Imperium and said, whatever the fuck you want, please do not come here and do that again. And
Sometimes,
so-
if they didn't surrender, they would show up, like one of their ships would move into orbit over one of the planets, and they would bring back all the people that hadn't been torture murdered to death by just pushing them out of the ship over the city square. Several miles up, so that they got a nice long fall that everybody could see. And then they'd just leave. They wouldn't even say anything, just like, have all your people. Bye. You let your imagination fill in the details.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, pretty much, you have to be real goddamn stupid to not surrender at that point. In fact, it got to the point that most systems were like, here, the Night Lords are on their way. We give up. Which planet do you want us to murder so you just bypass us? We'll do whatever you say.
Yeah.
Which, again, entirely fair.
Well, and Conrad Kurz's argument that he made several times during the Horus Heresy books is that his crusades took the least toll in life of any of his brothers.
Yeah.
He's like, Gilliman rolls into a place and blows the shit out of it, everything dies. Freaking Lionel Johnson shows up to a place, his guys he has an entire company of dudes dedicated to war crimes. And they do it. They do that to people, and then
Lorgar
and so-
doesn't kill as many people, but he does spend like 5 years converting all of them to his technically illegal religion.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So
So,
yeah.
like, in death totals, usually fewer people die in any engagement that the Night Lords were a part of. And that was their thing, is they're like, listen, we save lives. And everyone else was like, you torture, murder civilians. And they're like, to save lives.
And the saddest part is, because it's 40K,
Mathematically,
they're right.
They're right. It works out.
They're wrong, but technically they are correct. And
So-
as we all know, that is the best kind of correct.
So then these creepy bastards sell their souls to chaos.
I don't
Right.
like this.
Yeah, so now you have Death Lords who did in fact perfect, and you got to remember, right? These are still Astartes. These are still Space Marines. So these guys and Space Marines, a lot of people don't think about this part a whole lot because they're big and they're strong and they're fast and like that's all well and good and it's exciting, but the Space Marines also basically have biological supercomputers for brains. They can do math to calculate the trajectories of their bullets on the fly, and many of them do. There's just the level of thought that a Space Marine can accomplish is really intense. And when you talk about when you look at the books about the why am I blanking? Emperor's Children, or the Blood Angels, where the Space Marines themselves would dedicate themselves to the mastering of an art or of an instrument or whatever. That the things Space Marines could do would transcend what mortals can do because their physiology allows them to do so much more. So with that capability, the Night Lords decided to get as good at torturing as they could so that they could have the most effective reputation for getting people to just surrender. And so they spent hundreds of years perfecting their techniques, and then they were introduced to the warp and to demons and to the torture things that demons know.
It just got rock hard.
So if you're like an extraordinarily prolonged painful death would be the worst thing, then Night Lords would be the scariest. or one of the scariest that I would think of.
If, on the other hand, you like the sanctity of your butt, it's the Emperor's
It's
Children.
the Emperor's Children. Exactly.
Slanesh, the god of non-consensual.
Yeah, which they're playing down as they should a lot.
Yeah, it's like,
in the
hey, we're
modern
going
age.
mainstream. Maybe let's not do the 80s teenage edgelord shit of rape and murder and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like maybe
That stuff didn't age well. It is, I mean,
Maybe-
in the
hey,
sense
hey,
that it's very
Slanesh.
clearly an evil.
Slanesh is retiring and the Great Horned Rat is coming in. Yes, because rats are gross and marketable.
And murder kill is a perfectly acceptable strategy for a bad guy to have, right?
Yeah.
Murder kill we're okay with.
It's the stuff with your butt that we object to.
Yeah, and every other
Yeah.
orifice. And orifices you may not even have yet.
But I will say the Chaos Marines don't have as many offshoots because A, they tend to have war bands instead of chapters. There's a lot less organization, and B, they're already pretty awful, so you don't need to spend extra time going into the extra awfulness. It's just all of the horrible.
It's all the bad.
Yeah.
Just all the bad, yeah.
Like at this point, given all of chaos and the warp and the demons and Slanesh and oh god Slanesh, like I would be grateful to face a bunch of Khornate berserkers. Like,
Yeah.
you just want to stab me with a chainsword. The only insertion you want to do to me is with an axe into my head or chest. If
You killing me is going to be painful, but brief.
yeah, it'll be quick. It'll be not clean, but efficient. Mm-hmm. And you might spend 10 minutes hacking me apart, but I'll be very dead by
I'll be
then.
very dead for most of that,
Yeah, so it's considering all the other things that could happen. This is the least terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Khorne starts to become like your favorite of the chaos deities just for that. Where you're just like, man, you're simple, you're straightforward, but I dig it. You're self-consistent in your message, and I appreciate that about Khorne.
And you're not even that sneaky. You're pretty straightforward about everything.
Yeah,
I don't
direct.
have to be. I have to be physically on my guard, but I can kind of relax around you.
And equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And like if he sees orcs blooding and sculling, he's like, yeah, orcs keep blooding and sculling. I dig it. You know what I mean? He's not picky like some of the gods.
Equal
I-
opportunity.
Yeah, I think the stance of
happy
this
with
pod is
anybody doing
officially
violence.
milk for the cornflakes.
Milk for the cornflakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's always that fun heretical question to just throw an absolute left turn into our conversation. But like the whole, if you had to choose to serve one of the chaos gods, which one would you choose?
Yeah, and I like that we've had this conversation before, and almost all of us go with Nurgle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, is it?
Yeah,
they're
100%.
happy.
100%.
Which, considering, yes, they're deluded and happy, but it's.
Still happy.
I've been
Happy.
crazy. You don't care.
Yeah.
You're happy. What else? What does that really matter?
During the Horus Heresy, there's a story, I'll have to look up his name, of one of the Death Lords who... Death Guard. I was like, that didn't come out right. Yeah, one of the Death Guard who, he has this little demon who's like a pet. And he talks about, like, how cute it is and, like, it'll bounce up and down. And he's, like, playing with it and all this stuff. And at one point during the battle, there's like a shockwave of reality goes over the field. It's like a really big Imperial victory. And for a moment, this Death Guard recovers his like actual perceptions, and he sees not only what he is like, what this little creature has become, and how like it's gross. It's like rotting and melting a bit in his hands, and like it's like slobbering, and it is slightly chewing on him, and it's got like boils. It's disgusting.
It's like somebody actually seeing what their Chihuahua looks like.
Without any mental barriers.
Yeah.
Offense to them?
Or their
anything
pug,
like that.
or their Boston Terrier. Like, oh god, its eyes are huge. It's clearly deformed.
Yeah, but worse, right?
Yeah.
But like turned up to a 40k level, and then he sees himself and what he's become, and then he tries to kill himself, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But then the shockwave ends, and he goes right back into like,
I feel that's so much
I
better.
feel so much better. I'm glad you're cute again. So to them, like everything is cool. Like
Yeah.
it's cute. Like you're not dying because you can't die because you're just constantly dying.
And that's another thing that for the Games Workshop likes to play with, the bending reality, and reality perception is what you make of it. There's a group in Age of Sigmar that's a series of vampire lords, the Carrion Court. That, like, they're a bunch of ghouls and vampires, and they just feed on graveyards and swarm people, and they're covered in bones and filth until you get bitten by one. And then suddenly you're in their world, where they're a bunch of nobles and lords and ladies at court, and they're covered in shiny metals and they're at a noble feast with all their people protecting them from the dark forces, and, like, you'll have a ceremony where a guy's getting a medal pinned on him, and in reality somebody's just shoving a sharpened piece of bone through a chunk of his chest. And because they're all gibbering maniacs, but in their shared delusion, they're lords and ladies and, like, noble protectors. Which, to me, is I just find that really cool, and that's a fun idea.
Yeah. We have different definitions of fun.
Well, like, hey, you don't play 40K for that kind of fun.
I mean, that's true.
You don't play 40K for a good time, unless you're playing orcs.
Agreed.
And even then, it's a 40K good time. So yeah, I find that a neat idea and a compelling story device. Not anything I would actually ever want to see in real life.
Right.
Although, again, if you gotta choose, an army of the damned to work for, might as well be in the army that thinks it's having a good time.
Yep.
Suddenly, I'm reminded of a Terry Pratchett Discworld thing of the bursar at Unseen University. Over the course of the books, goes completely insane. Just the hazards of being a wizard. Until finally, at one point, he is absolutely insane and completely delusional, but we found the right combination of pills so that he is deluded into thinking he's sane. And only occasionally will he just start to float randomly, but for the rest of the time, he thinks he's perfectly normal. And we just don't tell him otherwise. I don't know what drew that to my mind, but I do love that idea. I feel like that's how I live my life. I'm completely mad, but I've convinced myself that I'm not.
I don't think either of you... Have you read Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight?
No.
Oh, man. Okay. I might have to get you to do that just for episodes, because it's really good.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a character from that, but since neither of you have read it, I'm not going to go there.
Well, we're at before editing, about 43 minutes. So do we have any other Space Marine chapters we wanted to mention? I think we've done a sufficiently spooky Halloween-y version of the Space Marines.
The salamanders are cool.
The salamanders do have my favorite
do you need
successor chapter.
Do you need a feel-good Space Marine chapter?
Yeah, I need to feel good Space Marine.
How about the Black Dragons?
Actually, that's a good one.
Yeah. They're a salamander successor, everybody's pretty sure. They're from the Cursed Founding, which I think was the 13th.
Yeah.
And just the Mechanicus tried to improve things, and wanting progress is bad in this universe. So they fucked it up, and everybody came out of that founding just a little bit cursed. A lot of them went to Chaos. I think the Lamenters are part of that, and their curse is just bad luck.
Being the unluckiest boys.
There was a text-to-speech episode where it just... the custodian tells the Emperor about the history of the Lamenters, and there's no jokes, he just starts weeping. Like, the Emperor just breaks down in tears, like, no, this is too much. But yeah, the Black Dragons, so they, instead of having coal black skin and glowing eyes like the salamanders, have gray skin with kind of a leathery growth on it that looks like scales, and kind of overlaps like scales. And occasionally, their bones will keep growing because they're osmodula. Mm-hmm. One of the Space Marine organs that makes their bones super hard and gives them like the chest plate instead of ribs keeps going on theirs, so they get a claw coming out of the back of their arms, and often a giant spike coming out of their foreheads, which they will then dip in adamantium. And in their assault squads, only the ones with that genetic growth get to be in the assault squad.
So they're Wolverine?
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they do sharpen them.
Wolverine, but
but Space Marine.
but Space Marine with a jetpack.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
They are salamanders, so they are. Again, they're cursed founding, and they're not officially salamanders, but I think everybody's pretty sure. Like, look at them; they look like salamanders, and also they're really nice guys.
Also, the dragon motif.
Yeah.
I mean,
The dragon, the skin, the general niceness. They're not as nice as the salamanders, but they are pretty chill dudes. Usually out to help humanity. Also, my favorite part, the Mechanicus and the Inquisition is like, oh, y'all are all of the mutants. Let's check your gene seed. And they're like, here you go. Why does this gene seed test show you 100% pure? Why did it take you extra long to get us this gene seed? Don't worry about it. And occasionally they will have just a perfectly normal looking, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, perfectly human space marine, and some observer went like, aha, you're just getting his gene seed over and over again and shipping off everybody. You keep telling the rest of the Imperium that you're pure, and the Mechanicus keeps losing its shit because obviously not.
Yeah.
But he's like, nope, totally pure. Check us. Watch. So yeah, they're just barely on the accepted list, but they are generally considered to be pretty cool dudes. And they look like, again, it's that same duality, like the salamanders. They look like monsters. They are actually nice and cuddly, unless you're non-human, in which case they'll fry you. But even then, they'll do it in a friendly way.
yeah. Most humanitarian chapter uses the most war crimey war.
Yep. So yeah, any other Space Marines we wanted to mention, or is that a high note to end on?
That's a high note.
That's pretty good.
It made me feel
Yeah.
good
I mean,
about the Space Marines again.
Because
after,
there's we could have another day on just like our favorite Space Marine chapters for why
Yeah.
they're awesome. Yeah.
But we just talked about a whole bunch of horrible ones that I thought were chaos. Apparently aren't. So
Nope.
it was nice to hear about one that's basically chaos, but good.
Yeah. All right. So I think that does it for our spooky Space Marines, which will be the title of this episode. All right, and we'll come up with a sign off eventually. Okay. Bye.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.